This is the regular board meeting of March 16, 2023. It is now 4:37 PM. We will begin roll call. Mary, please call the roll.
President Chavez,
Present.
Vice President Cortese.
Here.
Clerk Doe,
Here.
Member Herrera,
Here.
Member Lay.
Yeah.
Are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on a closed session agenda item at this time?
We have no online public comment, nor do we have any in-person public comment.
Okay, the board will now recess to closed session. All right, so let's get started. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right. Welcome to the regular board meeting of March 16, 2023. Members of the public, please submit your public comments as follows. You may raise your hand. You may raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak and offer comment in real time. In-person public commenters will be allowed entry 3 speakers at a time in the boardroom. Upon conclusion of a speaker's public comment on the agenda item, the speaker must exit the boardroom. You may also submit your public comment online by accessing the link to the forum on the district's homepage at www.esuhsd.org or the link on the agenda. Please reference the agenda item number in your written comment and limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. Please note, all meetings are recorded. All regular and special meetings of the board and trustees and board study sessions are streamed live on meeting nights and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district's YouTube channel listed on the district's webpage at www.esuhsd.org under the quick link section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the agenda or any personnel issues. Your comments will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and/or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretation of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda on the district's website. All right, so let's go to section 5.01, adoption of the agenda. So do we have any items to be removed from the agenda for consideration and or carried to future board meetings for consideration? Is there anything?
Not from administration.
Colleagues? Okay, great. That's 5. Section 6, there's no recognitions on the agenda. Section 7, Lee Henny, the floor is yours.
We don't really have any updates for the last meeting, but on April 17th, which is next month, we're going to be hosting a webinar on Title IX, just for students to kind of get that information, because there's not a lot of ways for students to find out about that kind of stuff. So yeah, that'll be April 17th.
April 17th,
Good
noted.
question. Lee, will that webinar be open to all students like a town hall, or is it just for the student governing board?
Open to everyone, similar to the one we hosted with Ms. Chow and Ms. Wheeler a couple months ago. Yeah.
Thank you, Lee. All right, section 8.01. Does anybody have a request to move any items out of order on the agenda? No? Great, seeing none. Here we go. Section 9, there is no public hearing. Oh, wait,
8.02.
sorry. I was gonna completely just, Michelle's like, yes, or no, who knows? My apologies for that. 8.02, we have a presentation and an action to receive an approved second interim financial report for the fiscal year 22-23. So Michelle and Toon, the floor is yours. Apologies again.
No worries. Good evening, President Chavez, Superintendent Vanderzee, and members of the board. Thank you so much for this opportunity this evening to share with you information on the second interim report. This is before you as an action item this evening, and I do have a driver this evening. Thank you so much. So as I always like to do, I like to start out with the vision, and the vision for this district is to ensure that our students are college and career ready. This is reflected in our LCAP through our goals and our actions. To further that in our mission, we support the college and career readiness with relevant learning environments to inspire our critical thinkers, innovators, and problem solvers. The district has a commitment to equitable communities, and this is to meet our students where they are and to further the strengths and to support the growth for our students. I like to call them scholars, and to do that in a positive way. And that is to ensure that they become successful adults in society. Okay, so this is just demonstrating where we are in the year for our budgeting cycle, and we're almost through the end of the year. Boy, did that go fast. And so here we are in March with our second interim report. And then next, you can see here, we'll be starting into next year, in the 2023-24 year. And we will be heavily in budget season. Okay, so the second interim report really reflects and it addresses the compilation of transactions for revenues and expenditures for the period beginning at the beginning of the year, July 1st through January 31st. So that is considered our second interim report. So that's the budget, the actuals that are during that period of time. Also, please note that this report does have a positive certification, and that means that the district will be able to meet its financial obligations in the current year and 2 out years. So that takes us out through the 2024-25 school year. So the action item would be to review and approve the report, and that is the recommendation of staff. So a couple of highlighted items here. We did discuss the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant in our first interim report, but of note is the Arts, Music, and Instructional Materials Discretionary Block Grant. Since the last time that we met and we talked about the budget, there has been a reduction from the state. So initially we were slated to receive 13.2 million. We had a reduction of 4.5 million. And so that leaves us with 8.7 million of arts, music, and grant. So I also want to note here is that reduction came from the operational side. There is no reduction to the arts, music, or instructional materials. So that was something that was important to us. So as we look at breaking it down between unrestricted and restricted, you can see I'm just going to focus on the combination. So we started out the year with our beginning balance of 65 million. In the second interim report, we are at 392 million. Expenditures of 358 million. That brings the difference there brings our ending balance to 99. Please note also that this 99 million is inclusive of the stabilization commitment, the fiscal stabilization commitment that the board passed. I believe it was in June last year, and that's 31.2 million. In addition to that, the economic uncertainty of 3%, that's a statutory requirement that is also inclusive in there. That's about 10.7 million.
Question on that?
Yes.
So as we move into our budgeting process,
Yes.
is it conceivable that we may not need that?
Not at this
Resolution?
time. And hold on to that thought,
Okay.
because as we get to the multi-year projection, you'll see that there is a need for it.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Thank you. So as we look at, this next item, we're looking at the differences between our first interim and second interim. We see that with our revenues, This is kind of expanding on the one that you just saw. So with our revenues, we have a $6 million increase, and that really was reflective of an item that was unexpected due to COVID, and it had to do with ADA. So that is the increase there. Not expected to continue. And then we have our adjustment on our federal revenues. And this is looking at the projected expenditures. And so that's where the revenues are being adjusted to the expenditures that are being expected. The next item is our state revenue. I just mentioned the $4.5 million reduction for the arts grant. That is included in this category. In addition to that, we did receive a new grant. It's a Cal Shape grant. And so that is making up that difference and showing a $3 million difference there. And then with the last category of the local revenues, this is what I would call maybe the cats and dogs. Those are, those items that we don't really know at the beginning of the year, the rentals, leases, those sorts of things. So those are adjustments, giving us a difference of 3.3 million. Okay, now we're moving into the expenses. So again, same format, looking at first and second interim, those differences. So with certificated, classified, and benefits, we're always looking at this time of the year at those adjustments, either increases or potentially vacancies that have not been filled. And so those adjustments are occurring. And that also falls into the area of benefits, health and welfare. The books and supplies, though we, really looking at what we can expect that will be spent and adjusting that to down to the area that are down to a level that we would be spending those dollars. And so you are seeing an adjustment there. That category of services and operating capital outlay, that was a small adjustment there. Again, just I would say right sizing those for expenses for the year. The last item, we received an invoice for our SELPA expenses, and these are for services for our special needs students that are received through a regional program. And it was an unexpected expense that came from last year, but that was an invoice that was just received. So that's what that increase is. So that gives us an increase of 3.6 million. Nope, I'm sorry, a decrease. So one other thing, I was remiss in saying this, please give me a moment. So if we look at the expenses, so when you see a negative, this really is what is the impact to the ending balance. So when you see, so I just want to mention that because it could look a little odd, but so when you look at first interim versus second interim, the impact to the ending balance, because there was an increase in the expenses, is going to be that 0.6. And then if it's a positive, then it would not be impacting that ending balance. It would increase it. Okay.
And
Yes.
this is to date, right?
I'm sorry.
This is to date. It could change a little bit given we're still not done with the school year.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Yes. These expenses are not in stone. We are still marching towards the end of the school year, fast approaching. And so, yes, these could change. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a
Oh,
question?
yes. Molly.
Right at that page, when you talk about the first interim, 362.1 million, the second interim, 358.5 million. So the difference 3.6. So that 3.6 million is the amount of money that we be able to use for something else, or are they going to go back to general fund, or can you elaborate a little bit?
So it would either go back to because this is a combination. So it would either go back to the associated restricted fund, or it would go back into the general fund. And as you'll see in just a moment, we still have a little bit of red out there.
All right.
But it would go back into those accounts.
thank you.
Yeah, good question. Okay, so this next slide, thank you. We're looking at, so it looked a little different the last time we met. And so we want to take just a moment with this. And so the top line, which I think is like a purple line, blue, it is our CBEDS enrollment. So remember that CBEDS is from October, right? And then our actual P2, that takes us, it shows the actuals through 2021, 22. Remember, we haven't gotten to our P2 date yet for the current year. So once we do, then that number will be put in. So when you're looking at 22, 23 through 24, 25, those are projections. And that red line, that is our average daily attendance. And then the line in the middle, that's the funded ADA, the prior year, and then the averaging of the 3-year average. This was a mechanism for COVID to help to level out the impact that districts were feeling through COVID and the reductions. So as you can see, that has benefited us greatly in terms of where we are with our ADA on the red line versus that line in the middle. Okay, now we're going to look at the multi-year projection, which looks at the current year and 2 out years. We've also added the first interim as a comparison here, just for look back. So as we can see, we've talked about the second interim, but as we look at our years 2 and 3, we see that we are still seeing a decrease. I'm going to call it a budget imbalance in our second year and into our third year. So in the second year, we have a $20.1 million budget imbalance. And in the third year, we have a $31.2 million budget imbalance. The last time we met, that third year was a larger number. So again, thank you to the staff for going through and really trying to ensure that the information that we have, that we're making those adjustments to our budget so that we can reduce that where we can. However, a $31.2 million budget imbalance is something that we still need to address, right? One of the things, and thank you to the board for your leadership in this area, you did pass a resolution that would reduce $8 million in that year. So that is reflected in that year. And so that is still there. And as you had asked, Trustee Cortese, previously, the 31 million, it is also still in that. It's incorporated into that ending fund balance. So when you look at the reports, that big thick report that you got, you will see that it is actually identified separately. Okay, thank you. So as a state budget update, this has not changed. There was a proposition 28 that passed that did not get reduced. And again, that's a proposition. So that's not something that the state would have the ability to just reduce. That would require voter approval to do something like that. So that is still in place. And as we continue to look at the future, we've got, some mixed messages out there, but there is, discussion in terms of downturn in the economy. We have our different economic watchdogs out there. We had UCLA came out with their forecast yesterday, a bit of a mixed bag, but again, we will watch that closely. Okay. And so our next steps, great, thank you. So our next steps are budget development as we march into June. And so the May revise will be here in another 6 to 8 weeks. And so that's for our 23-24. That's what we will utilize as we are finalizing the budget that will come before you in May/June. And so those are the next couple. Just the reason why you're seeing those 2 dates for both the LCAP and the budget is that there's a hearing, a public hearing first for both the LCAP as well as the budget, and then you will have the adoption of both the LCAP and the budget.
Thank you, Ms. Huntoon. Colleagues, do we have any questions, comments? Lee, also for you.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead. I was gonna move for.
Trustee Lake.
Do you bring back the page has the 2022-23 combined multi-year projection?
Yeah,
I don't know what page.
Oh, you know what?
either.
There's
Yeah,
paper.
that one, that's the page right there.
thank you.
Okay. So when you mentioned on year two, 2023-2024, we have a deficit 20.1 million.
Correct.
Where's that money come from? Where's that deficit come from?
So it's your revenues minus your expenditures. So your expenditures are larger than your revenues in that year. So that's why we call it a budget imbalance. So you're spending more than you're bringing in revenues in that year. So when that happens, then it comes out of the ending balance that is available.
Okay, and does that carry to the ending balance on July 1st, 2023 for year two is we have positive 79.7 million. So even though we have a negative number, but it shouldn't be affected for our budget. Am I correct?
Even though there's a negative number.
Yeah,
So-
the negative number right there, 20.1 million, but
Mhm.
the ending fund balance, that's what we're looking for. Am I correct?
So when you think about your ending fund balance, it's really one-time dollars sitting down there. And so when you are utilizing your ending balance multiple years, then it's going to reduce pretty significantly very quickly. And so what your decisions that you have to make, it comes down to what programs, so it's staffing and programs, and that's what you want to be able to support. So what programs and staffing do we have in place as we go into those out years? Now, what we don't have in here, but we will very soon, once we get to the budget, is we don't have the 25-26 year in place. And so that again, we will look to that out year, and that will incorporate, whatever budget is coming out from the state in your 23-24 year.
Okay, so at this right now, we 22-23, we're pretty good for the budget. 23-24, we still positive. 24-25, we're still positive. But what you said is 25-26 is something that the board should take a look at, right?
Yeah.
You might have the deficit or whatever the revenue did not come to the point that the expense have to be, out, right? Okay.
And if you look at, let's just look at your ending balance between second interim, which is the 99, and it's
Yes.
going down by 50 million within 2 years.
So, okay. So 99.8 million is beginning balance 2022 was ended July 1st, 2023, 79.7. So we pretty much spend again like roughly 20.1 million by the end of the year, right?
So I was looking at the current year, 99,
Right,
and looking at years 24-25.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's where I'm getting the 50 million.
So that mean that beginning we have 20 in 2022 we have 99.8, but at the end of the year we look at the number 79.7, but we still positive. That's
Mhm.
what.
Your
And
ending
the
balance
end of
at that point in time.
24-25, we still have a balance 48.5.
Mhm.
Okay, that's I want to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think trustee Herrera, nope.
No, I just was gonna make a motion to approve the
Okay,
second interim.
Cortese.
Was it time to do that?
He has a
Oh,
Just,
comment.
just a quick question, about, excuse me, the, enrollment in ADA, I don't know what page number that is, but. So. And I'm not looking for a specific answer because I didn't ask this in time for anyone to. But it just looks like looks like our attendance is about 89%. Which is which is down from last year by, looks like a couple percent. And I'm wondering, and this is more like a hypothetical question than a specific answer, but I'm wondering if there are things we could do with our one-time money to help get kids back in the seats so that we can, that would probably pay for itself, right?
Yeah, and that is one of the strategies is try to get that ADH enrollment ratio up to
And I get,
increase
I mean, I
revenues.
get we're still coming out of a pandemic and
Yeah.
kids are dealing with what they're dealing with. And yeah, so that's not any kind of chastisement. It's just like whoa, there's an opportunity there. That's all.
Great. Anything else, colleagues?
Second.
Moved by Doe, seconded by Herrera. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Abstention? The vote passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Huntoon. And make sure that I don't miss another agenda item, right? All
I
right,
also, Madam President, would also like to thank Sylvia Plow for her work on
Yeah.
this document and
That
digging
is-
through all of it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a very thick packet that we know a lot of work and a lot of people did a lot of work on this. We're very grateful. Thank you. Okay, section 9, there are no items there. Section 10. All right, members of the public may address the board on any subject not on today's agenda. However, provisions of the Brown Act preclude any action. As an unagendized item, no response is required from the board or district staff, and no action can be taken. However, the board may instruct the superintendent to agendize the item for a future meeting. Any person may address the board on any item on the meeting agenda. Persons wishing to address the board must fill out a speaker request form via online. Your comments will be read out loud as part of the public comment. Comments should be limited to no more than 1,000 characters in length. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak. You have 2 minutes to speak. So do we have any public comment?
There is no online public comment. And there appears to be no written comment as well.
Correct. Okay, I don't see anything there either. Okay, so that is section 10 for us. Section 11, let's see, 11.01, proposed 2023 board meeting calendar. Mr. Vanderzee.
What we have before you today is a recommendation for the Board of Trustees calendar of board meetings for next year. You see the attachment here, given some recent input. This is brought for your approval with an understanding that currently the August 26th and September 21 dates we'll have to come back with options for those 2 dates. But otherwise, the recommendation is to approve the calendar as is.
I have no conflicts currently with.
Can I ask a quick question? Mr. Vanderzee, so September 21st, that we,
We have a handout available to the trustees. Well, let me give you a hand, I'll let us give you a handout that indicates the 2 date changes. There's not a recommendation for the new dates, but just which 2 dates are affected.
okay. Yeah, I think this, yeah, we will work on for this date. And I would like to request to review it.
Which date, trustee Lay? We could also take this offline. We can say with these 2 dates and possibly another one and accept the calendar of dates as is.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Of course. Colleagues? Correct.
For the 2 days.
2 dates and possibly a third.
Oh.
Mhm. And when we bring it out, we'll bring it all together.
Yes.
to make those adjustments.
So move for approval of.
Second.
Okay. So moved by Herrera, seconded by Lay. Lee, how do you vote? Aye. Board, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Okay. Section 11:1. All right, 11.02, this is approval waiver of facility use fees per board policy 1330. Trust, want to see if trustee Herrera has anything to say?
No, I'm just happy for the second year in a row to be sponsoring this waiver on behalf of the local community here that brings in an international audience in celebration of Buddha's birthday. Last year was held at Independence High School and it drew quite a number of people. And this year it will be at Yerba Buena High School. So just for the board to use one of my sponsors.
Awesome. All right, so I think we have a motion on the floor by trustee Doe. Dewey, seconded by Herrera. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The vote passes unanimously. Okay, so that's 11.02. We are on section 12. 12.01, this is a presentation regarding Naviance, California College Guidance Initiative Program. Ms. Marquez and Ms. Guerrero.
Yes, good evening, board. Tonight we bring you one of the items that's been asked for by the Board of Trustees. And here to present to you this evening is our Director of Instruction and Curriculum, Ms. Marta Guerrero.
Good evening, Superintendent, members of the board. My presentation today is, originally, it was a request of an update on Naviance, which is a counseling tool. I was here in March 2021 to talk to you about Naviance. And the request from the board was an update on Naviance. So the title of the presentation is College and Career Readiness Tools, because in the last 2 years, some exciting things have been happening in the state of California that I wanted to share with you related to counseling tools like Naviance. We'll be talking specifically about the work of the counselors and the counseling tools available to our students. So it becomes even more important to talk about our promise, the promise to our community, that their children, if they attend Eastside High Schools, will be college and career ready and will have the skills that they will need to succeed out in the world in this new society of the 21st century. We will anchor the conversation, especially some of the recommendations at the end and some of our next steps on our commitment to build equitable communities, welcoming all students, ensuring that we get to know them so we can respond positively, and they in turn then can engage in the tasks and the assignments that teachers prepare for them. And the fact that all our work in ed services, all our work in this district is meant to be a system-wide type of engagement and work, so that when a student comes to one of our schools, there should be a certain expectation of the education that they will receive, because we've taken the time to ensure that we have policies, practices, and levels of access across our district schools. We have chosen MTSS, a multi-tiered system of support, as the framework, the organizer around which we do our work. And on the right is a relatively new graphic. I think Ms. Marquez introduced it during the February LCAP presentation, which takes that concept of MTSS, which is addressing the whole child, the academic behavior and wellness needs of students, and to do so as a system, so that we have the policies in place, we have practices in place that will ensure we address the needs of our students, and we have stronger outcomes, in that we remove any barriers that are preventing our students from accessing the education that we provide for them. So you saw the MTSS symbol from the state of California in the previous slide with the umbrella. That isn't our symbol for MTSS. It's actually the logo for the state of California. MTSS is a statewide initiative. You saw Ms. Marquez's an ed services system-wide logo around addressing the whole child, this is another way of looking at it. The pyramid highlights three different colors because there are three different levels of support that we are putting in place for our students. The first one is tier 1, green, the support that we provide all our students. What does tier 1 instruction look like, where we take care and embed in the academic, the behavior and wellness needs of our students so that they can learn? All students have access to that. Then some students have access to tier 2 as well as tier 1 supports. And lastly, a few students have access to not just tier 1, tier 2, but also individual supports. The questions on the right address specifically today's presentation, which is if our goal is to have tier 1 practices, how do we support that in our students, in all of our students? What does that look like when the student is a 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grader? And how do we help all students navigate that school to college and career pipeline of which we are part of? We are a culminating piece. Students enter the pipeline, if we call it that, at preschool and kindergarten and elementary school and middle school. We are high school, and we prepare students for the next steps. And since we're talking about counseling and counseling tools, that question becomes a lot more relevant to today's presentation. So taking you back a couple of steps, I was here 2 years ago to talk to you about Naviance, and in particular about the work of the counselors. During that presentation, I talked to you about how important those Wednesday collaboration days during distance learning were, because we were able to start working with counselors on Wednesdays. We met for professional development. We had meetings to discuss their work and how to align their work. And I talked to you about how it allowed us to start being more intentional in the work and to talk about counseling as a district. Because we used the lens of a system response, I shared at that time 2 years ago that there were some gaps, that we found some gaps, that we may have some policies that need to be updated. There were some gaps in practice because not all the counselors, particularly our new counselors, were not aware of some of the board policies that guide their work. That we still needed to identify common assurances aligned with MTSS around the work of counseling, and that we needed to identify interventions and supports for all grade levels, and that we needed to have across our district schools the use of a common counseling tool.
Question.
Mhm.
Are all these arrows like the gaps that we're hoping to bridge?
This came from the presentation in March 2021, and there was another graphic with the arrows going different ways. And it kind of signified the fact that because counselors hadn't had an opportunity to kind of work together, because life does not permit it, but those Wednesdays of staff development during distance learning allowed us to do that, that instead of having our arrows go different directions, we were able to be more intentional and start aligning our work. So it has to do with the alignment.
Oh, so these are all the things that we're aligning on.
Mhm.
That's quite a few,
Mhm.
especially for a system this big. Thank you
Yeah.
for clarifying that.
So the use of a counseling tool was a gap in practice back in 2021. And the tool in particular was Naviance. We talked about Naviance at that time. Naviance is an online tool. We purchased the use of Naviance. It's a tool we purchased that allows students to be able to create 4-year plans, that provides career and college exploration, that allows students to start their college applications, and that aligns and integrates with the common application for private universities. And what we found at that time, as we worked together, the counseling department and instructional services, was that we had some gaps in access, that there is no designated time during the day for counselors to meet with students. That if a counselor needs to meet with a student, they send out a pass. Sometimes the student is able to make it, sometimes they don't. And that in order for a counselor to meet with a student, we have to pull them away from the classroom, away from instruction. So it's a push and pull, right? A pull and a tug as to, at this time, a counselor needs to meet with them. So we're going to have to remove a student from the classroom while we provide a valuable service. And that the access of counselors varies from school to school. That there are counselors who go sit in a class, let's say a sophomore class in the back of the room and talk to kids that way. Some sit outside, some pull kids out, some do it during a government class or a PE class, so that the practices were a little bit inconsistent. Remember, we're talking about 2021. And so we created a plan. And that is the plan that I shared with you, or I shared to you in 2 years ago. And the plan was that we were going to start aligning our practices. So that was the plan for 21-22 last school year. However, in the summer of 2021, a series of legislation and assembly bills came out that impacted the work of the counselors. In particular, the three that you see there. AB 104, which not only gave parents the option of changing their grades from distance learning to a pass, no pass, also allowed students who were in their third or fourth year of high school during distance learning to graduate under state requirements, 130 credits, not under district requirements. So that created a shift in the work of the counselors. They needed to do this and meet with students to make sure that they knew about this and took advantage of the possibility to graduate at 130 if they so chose. It was not mandatory. Then AB 130, that same summer, made independent studies an option for students due to COVID. And so making sure that parents, that we met with parents, counselors met with them, make sure that they submitted the applications for independent study. The number of students in independent study increased in our district because of this. And then the new legislation, AB 469, which we're in process of implementing now, which is a requirement that 100% of our graduating seniors complete a FAFSA, federal application for financial aid, or the DREAM Act application for aid. And so that kind of changed the work of the counselors. Yes. So where are we now? The results of usage of Naviance haven't changed very much from 2 years ago to now, for reasons that I have already covered. And the issue of having a system-wide response and the use of a district common tool has still continued to be an issue. So while we were addressing the results of the assembly bills and knowing that we had not done the work that we said we were going to do, the state of California has been doing some work of their own. We still have these issues. We still are this one. We're still very much interested in doing the work that we talked about in 2021, but the tool has changed. And this is due to some initiatives from the state of California. Sorry. In the last, I believe it was 2019, when there was new legislation that was passed that and new initiatives around the cradle to career system. The state of California has created a commitment to build a system that will link education, workforce, financial, and social service information so that our outcomes can be better tracked and we can better serve our communities. The initiatives, the goals of this initiative are here. It is to ensure that students are able to evaluate their goals for college planning, that we can streamline college applications and the sharing of transcripts, that students are able to receive proper credit for the courses they take because we're all using the same system, that students are able to understand the trends in education and the wages that they could earn. There's also, this initiative also affects the work of the counselors, so they can identify students who are not on track to attend a four-year institution, to support students as they apply for financial aid in colleges, so that they understand employment outcomes. It also supports the work of educational leaders as we make decisions, not just at the state level, but also at the school district level around work that impacts the outcomes for our students. And these initiatives also impact the work of social services providers, of state agencies, of advocates and policymakers. It is a way for the state of California to align all the information that we collect about ourselves from the moment we're born and we enter the system, right? Whether it's through a hospital system, social services system, through preschool, there is information that's collected. And sometimes, most of the time, we don't know about it. And so a student comes to us and we have no idea of the needs of a student. And we tend to react instead of being proactive. There is a link on the right-hand side, and that is the logo of the Cradle to Career system. And if you're interested, you can click on that and it will take you to the website to learn more about the state of California's Cradle to Career system. The Cradle to Career system is aligned with legislation. AB 132 established this Cradle to Career system to ensure that we have trusted information and data that can be used when making decisions, but also to provide access to tools and services that support the education to employment pipeline. The Cradle to Career system in AB 132 also mentioned the fact that there will be dashboards and query tools and data that we can use to do the work to align the services that we provide our students. AB 132 also calls out by name the California Colleges Guidance Initiative. It's an organization that provides tools and services to California schools, in particular grades 6 through 12, to ensure that our students are college or career ready. It calls by name californiacolleges.edu, which is an online tool similar to Naviance that will allow us to create accounts for students so that they can do all those things that they could do in Naviance, but in the state system and at no cost. And it also talks about the importance of the California Colleges EDU website and ensuring that our students are completing their FAFSAs, being able to monitor the students completing their FAFSAs, being able to monitor which students are applying into where, which currently we don't know unless the student tells us. Next one.
I'm looking, this is such small.
Mhm.
I realize this is from the state, right?
Yes.
What's the application that the students can use that's in lieu of Naviance?
It's called it's an interesting name. It's called californiacolleges.edu. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a few minutes. This is the big picture is the Cradle to Career system, which aligns
Okay.
all the data. It is it is mentioned in the legislation, and it is also in Ed Code, and the tools that it will provide us are listed in Ed Code. So I'm going to go through some of those pieces a little bit more in detail.
Okay.
So this data system, this Cradle to Career system is being built because currently the data on early education, K through 12, colleges, social services, and employment are totally disconnected. We don't talk to each other, and yet we're talking about students, and it impacts the students in our community. There is no way for us to share information, and it's difficult to tell how we can change and impact outcomes when we don't have all the information to make the correct decisions. This is the timeline from the state about this Cradle to Career system that they're trying to put together. If you see, it just started being designed in 2020, 2021. They started linking data last year. Right now, this year, they're launching the data system, in particular, the californiacolleges.edu, which is the online tool for students. So this is now, as we're speaking. They will continue to expand the tools in 23, 24, and we will get to full implementation with all the data from social services, health, and workforce in 25, 26. So the legislation, which was passed in 2019, was only a few years ago, and since then, they've been working on all of this. Next one.
Oh, will we be able to see the resources that these students and families have been a part of in their, like, do we have access to that as a education entity or?
It is my understanding, again, this is new to all of us. It is my understanding that there will be different dashboards under the Cradle to Career system where educational leaders, state, school systems, counselors, will be able to access data that impacts the day-to-day achievement of our students. And we're going to see a little bit more about that. Right now, there's a few that are already working. One of them is the California Colleges.edu, which is the online tool like Naviance. E-transcripts is already working. They're building it bigger, but it's there. So when the conversation came around Naviance, yes, I can tell you we had it. I can tell you that there were some issues that we identified and that we weren't able to address them last year because of the legislation. But at the same time, the state of California is working on building this whole system, and we were able to kind of get on board. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So Ed Code mentions by name and authorizes the California College Guidance Initiative to provide us tools, school districts, to provide us tools for free college and career planning, to provide us free financial aid curriculum, to provide us support to plan for and monitor use of the tools and the curriculum, and to enable and to provide tools to ensure that students and their families are able to keep on track of college or career, depending what it is that they interest them, or both. And it will allow the counselors to see progress on applications for colleges and financial aid, which we cannot do right now. We track how many kids are going to college, but at this point, all we can do is ask students at an end of the year survey, did you apply? How many colleges did you get accepted to? If they don't tell us, we don't know. Did you apply for financial aid? So this will provide us a tool to monitor and do better in our work to ensure that our students have access to all of that. So this is what the front face of the California Colleges.edu webpage looks like. This is the online curriculum. I do not have access as a student. Our students don't yet have access, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I can give you a taste with the same video that our principals, our APDs, and our counselors saw last fall when we started the process of coming into a memorandum of understanding with CCGI.
We can pull this up.
I was a freshman. I never would have believed I'd have so many choices. School seemed like that conveyor belt at the grocery store checkout. You just ride on it till the end, and it dumps you off where you're supposed to go. In college, that never seemed like an option at all.
I remember sitting down with Javier in the guidance office. When I asked what he wanted to do, he shrugged. But when I asked what he enjoyed doing, he really opened up. Javier didn't see how his interest connected to jobs. So I walked him through a career assessment on californiacolleges.edu.
My dad's a mechanic, and I've always loved seeing how things work. Career assessment Ms. Hill had me do came back with jobs I never even thought of. Electrician, aircraft technician, even mechanical engineer.
Javier spent a lot of time on the career search tool, researching what these jobs involved, what they paid, and what kind of education or training he'd need to get them.
One thing that they all had in common was that they needed more than just a high school diploma. To be a mechanical engineer, my best bet is a bachelor's degree, while an associate's degree could really help in becoming an aircraft technician. To be an electrician, I'd need to get certification.
Javier needed to find schools with specific programs, and he needed them to be affordable and close to home. The major search tool let him put in programs of study, then find colleges that offered them. He found 3 nearby. LA Trade Tech provides an electrician certification program. West LA College has an AS in aviation maintenance, and Cal State Northridge offers a BS in mechanical engineering.
All these schools require different things. If I wanted to be eligible for CSU, I'd have to meet A through G requirements. That meant passing a bunch of high school classes in different subjects, along with having the right GPA. I was already a junior, and I was worried I was way behind.
Calculating A through G eligibility by hand is confusing, but because the CSU and UC eligibility tools connect to Javier's actual transcript, figuring it out was a snap. I ran a report and found that Javier was just 2 units off track for CSU.
Miss Hill helped me find a summer English course to get caught up, and I was able to test out a Spanish too. I even used the academic planner to plot out all my senior year courses and make sure I stayed on target.
Javier applied to 3 schools, CSU Northridge, West LA College, and LA Trade Tech. Since he used his CaliforniaColleges.edu account to apply, I could track when each application was submitted.
CSU application was the most intimidating because I had to enter all my A through G courses. What if I left something off or got a course name wrong? It turned out to be a breeze. CaliforniaColleges.edu let me automatically import my A through G courses right from my account. It took 30 seconds and it made sure I didn't make any mistakes that could hurt my eligibility.
By submitting his CCC Apply applications through CaliforniaColleges.edu, his transcript data was automatically passed along with them. That way, LA Trade Tech and West LA College had the information they needed to properly place him in first-year English and math.
Applying was one thing. Figuring out how to pay for college, something else.
Javier applied to 3 different schools, but when I ran the financial aid application report, I could see he hadn't submitted a FAFSA or California Dream Act application. So I called him into the guidance office. I wanted him to know there was financial aid out there for him.
No one in my family had ever gone to college, so I had no idea how paying for it worked. I was freaking out about how I was going to be able to get loans for school, or how I'd pay them off, even if I did. Ms. Hill pointed me to the financial aid lessons, which took me step by step through how financial aid worked and how to apply. Turned out I was eligible for a whole bunch of free grants and work study too.
Javier launched his financial aid application through his CaliforniaColleges.edu account. That let us both track when it was submitted and whether the school had sent his GPA so he could be eligible for a Cal Grant.
March and April were like a dream come true. I got admitted to Northridge and got confirmation of my financial aid options at all 3 colleges.
There's nothing better than seeing a student succeed at something they thought was impossible. Javier ran into the office and pulled the acceptance and financial aid emails up on his phone. He said, "Can you believe I got into college?" I said, "Yes, I can."
4 years ago, I felt like I was on a conveyor belt, like I didn't have any choices at all. Suddenly, I got 3 amazing career options I think I'd really love, and 3 great colleges to choose from. Now comes the hard part, deciding what I want my future to be. It's a tough choice, but it's a great one, because I'm the one that's the making.
Currently, a student, if they are going to apply for college, have to go directly to the application, to the website for the university and hand enter their courses. Maybe there's a drop-down menu where you click which courses you are taking, and then you have to go to to the Student Aid Commission and click on the FAFSA application and fill it out. There's different websites that students have to manage. With California Colleges EDU, we can upload the student's demographic and transcript information, which then gets automatically uploaded when the student wants to, up to the applications for CSUs, UCs, and a number of independent colleges. And then from there, they can also launch their FAFSA application. But I think more importantly for our work is that counselors are able to monitor right away if a student is still A through G eligible or not. What classes do not qualify to be able to do, to guide the student better. Currently, counselors do that by hand, printing transcripts, writing notes on the side, and he needs this class, that class. They may use a spreadsheet to do so, or some of them may be using Naviance, not all. So everybody has a different way of doing it. This way, it allows you to track it better. And it comes from the state of California and it's aligned to the CSU, UC, independent colleges applications and FAFSA. So that's more or less the information. And the website is californiacolleges.edu.
Do they also have a way for you to track the counselor interactions with the student through Naviance, so that you can see the progress of the student per group by the counselor?
I don't know. That is a good question. We're receiving technical assistance from CCGI. As we discover and learn more about the program, I will find out if there is a place for them to do counseling, like a counseling log, Currently, the counseling log lives in Infinite Campus, which is our student information system. So when a counselor meets with a student, they enter some notes in Infinite Campus. But it's not necessarily consistent. Some people keep a log, some people keep a notebook. But I will ask the question and come back to you.
My rationale is not so much about the detail, but as much as about the big pictures that you as administrator now have the ability to see how many, not just the individual interactions, which is you have at Infinite Campus, you mentioned earlier, but rather the performance from the A to G, if that's, that's one way we are tracking our progress.
We will be able to run reports on how many of our students are on track based on the grades and the courses that they have taken. Yes, there will be an administrator account that will be able to measure that information. Kristen King has been key in these conversations, and our IT team is also been part of the technical assistance meetings because the sharing of information will require all their technical knowledge. So there is information on what the tools, especially californiacolleges.edu will provide for students, for educators, and for parents. And it basically, you saw the video and it's a summary of that information. It has curriculum. Students will have access to curriculum, and that was mentioned in the video. There are lessons that have already been chosen ahead of time for the different grade levels. I'm only showing you high school, but there is 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade lessons for students that students can follow online if they want to discover careers, if they want to learn more about financial aid, if they want to learn more about any of the topics that you see there, even finding out who you are and what your interests are. Sometimes they're teenagers, that takes a while. It takes some of us adults sometimes a little bit longer. There is also a resource library that's available to students and parents. It has readings and it has videos, and some of it can be found in other languages, Spanish, French, German, Chinese, not a lot of languages yet, but the possibility is there, and they are not done building it. So what it will look like in 2026, we don't know. There is also the feature of e-transcripts. Because we would upload the student information, transcript information can be easily shared with the student's permission. The student has to say, click whatever button he needs to click or she needs to click to be able to share the information of the transcripts, as opposed to printing them, as opposed to sending them in any other different ways that we send transcripts to universities. Currently, this is a statewide electronic transcript service built into californiacolleges.edu. They keep adding new colleges as they create new partnerships across the state of California. They do not share outside of the state of California, so this e-transcript is not for the student who wants to attend the East Coast, but this is for the state of California. For outside of California, you would have to follow more traditional methods of sending your transcripts. Some advantages of having an electronic transcript platform is the ability to see whether or not the students are on track to for A through G eligibility. It makes the process of admission a lot smoother, because sometimes kids forget to check their messages from CSU UC. They don't know that they need that they still need a transcript, and then they have to request it, and then they have to send it. It's all done electronically. Not only that, sometimes that kind of delays their admission and has impact beyond what the students think. It also helps with the eligibility for financial aid. There's a number of dashboards and tools that are still going to be built. There are, if you look on the right-hand side, there are dashboards around early education, primary school, around transfer outcomes, around financial aid. They're not built yet, but there is a plan to do so. This, again, is all part of the Cradle to Career system. So where are we? Well, on March 2nd, you approved the data sharing agreement with CCGI, which is the large organization that is providing the tool, californiacolleges.edu. So there is the big system, Cradle to Career system, Under that, they have designated California College Guidance Initiative as one of the organizations that will help oversee some of this work. And it is CCGI that's providing the californiacolleges.edu online tool. As soon as you approved the MOU, we sent out the parent opt-out forms because we would be uploading demographic and transcript information. We had to notify parents of what we were doing, of what we plan to do, and give them the option of opting out. If they do not want their child's transcript information or demographic information uploaded, then we will not do so. They had an opt-out form to fill out. And so right now we're in the process of waiting for parents to finish turning in any of the opt-out forms. Students whose parents opt them out, or adult students who opt themselves out, will not have their transcript information uploaded or their demographic information uploaded. They will still have access to the website, but they will not have a personalized experience. We also sent out, besides mailing out the forms with the report cards, email messages with the links for the parents whose address we may not have correctly. So sometime in late March or early April, we're going to start the initial testing of the system. How does our Infinite Campus student information system talk to the californiacolleges.edu? Is the information matching? Are there going to be any glitches? Is there any misinformation? Are we pairing the information correctly? Did we submit it in the correct format so that it populates appropriately? And so for the remainder of the year, that's going to be the work of IT and Kristen King, who knows a lot about this, a lot more than I do. We will be providing training to staff. We need to create an implementation plan, a rollout plan, but it is our hope that if we work diligently the rest of the semester, we will be ready to roll it out in the fall. However, the work that we still need to do, and it's part of the implementation plan, is aligning it to the LCAP. This is a tool, this is an action. How does it support the goals in the LCAP? And Ms. Marquez was here in February and talked to you about data, that we look primarily to outcome data, but that we're going to start, or she was going to start restructuring the work so that we start looking at the different kinds of data we should be collecting, like capacity data and implementation data. So if we're looking at this particular tool, what do we expect to see? Besides the A through G outcomes, besides increased college applications, besides more students submitting a financial aid application. What capacity data do we expect to see? Do we have, does the staff have the knowledge, right? The skills or the disposition to implement these new tools? Do all the staff in the system commit to ensuring a successful implementation? What kind of work do we have to do around that? How do we integrate this tool into the MTSS Tier 1 work that we're doing? And will everyone have the physical and organizational tools that they need to get this work done? And lastly, implementation data. What common practices do we need to put in place? How will we ensure adherence to the practices that we agree upon? How will we measure the quality of implementation? To what extent will all students have access to the tools? Because we talk about all, so all students have access to the tools, and what is the level of engagement of students? We want to make sure that as we roll out the tool, we have a plan that encompasses those three areas so that the next time I stand before you to talk about the implementation of a new tool, we have a report that fully talks about the access that all our students and our practices that encompass all staff and students in our district. So a lot of information. In summary, we will, the Naviance system, our contract ends with them in June 30th of this year. And we have started a new MOU with the state of California with CCGI for the use of californiacolleges.edu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we do have some questions. Start off with Trustee Cortese.
Wow, thank you for that. I have a lot of questions that are sort of bigger than Eastside, but looking at the slide, page 16, where it talks about the timeline, and you may not, I don't know if you'll know the answer to this, but the little green circle on the top adds social service, health, and workforce data. Do you have a sense of what that, I mean, workforce data sounds like general, like these are the kind of careers that are trending, and this is how many, software engineers we'll need in 5 years, or like that, right?
The tool is so new that we are learning and discovering every day. And there are pieces that are not built yet, but it was my understanding from attending some of the meetings that we talk about our college and career readiness goal, and we never quite know what happened to our students. And it's going to be aligning that kind of data. What it actually will look like, I'm not quite sure. I don't know where they are in the process, but definitely more information to come.
Yeah, and on that one, I know one of the questions that they're hoping to answer is how does the living wage that the student earned connect back to what their educational pathway is? And so that's one of the questions I know for sure they're looking to respond to as part of that additional data point.
Do you have any sense though what they mean by add social service data?
If I remember correctly, they want to look at family and students who receive services as a part of social services, whatever that entails, whether it's assistance through our various programs, so that then we can have access to find, Marta Guerrero gets this type of assistance, it comes from this department. And so what is the implications of that to our role in terms of education?
So I gotta say that makes me a little bit nervous about, like who is actually accessing this data? And, could that data end up being used against somebody? I mean, that's bigger than us, but it does, when you start to build these just giant conglomerations of data, I kind of worry sometimes about how it gets used. So, but it seems like an amazing tool overall.
I did embed live links in the PDF at various spots for you to learn more about it, because I know it's quite an intriguing idea.
Yeah, thank you for that. To the DSA point, well, you didn't say DSA, but to the data, there's a data sharing agreement that we approved that like really covers a lot of that stuff. So the fact that we're in a DSA, I think that's a good practice and a good point where we're starting. Okay, go ahead. No, Trustee
Yes.
Lei, sorry.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to staff, Ms. Marcus and Ms. Guerrero, and also all of staff who put this presentation. This is one item that I've been requested, I think in the last 6 months or last year. And I'm glad to hear that the Naviance app probably will be removed after June because we don't have the contract anymore. Because when I spoke with the student governing board, and they also mentioned that some of the students did not receive, did not have that type of support. And even though like one counselor took the EE student and present to them with the Naviance. And I think we need to be consistent. Some class will do in different ways, some counselor will do the other way, and some of them will be missing. So I think when we have a new program, and I'm glad that we have a partnership with CCGI, I think we should have a consistent rule. Whoever, counselor or whoever that involved in this program need to be probably we should have orientation for the 9th graders so they start from beginning. And my question to you is I'm glad to hear that we also bring this program to parents, educate them, because they will be a strong asset to support our student. Because without the support, student probably may not go look for the career that they have. So that's something that I'm really like to see, that I like to see this program start, but I want to see an annually report. I don't want to wait until another 2 years, another 3 years, when we see the data that show that, how many click that the student has been, involved in Navians, like 2,200 some click, vice versa, that we should have at least every student should, take this option and this program and, move on for that. I also want to think that if we can look at the data of the student who did not do good in our classroom, maybe take a little bit more time to help them to go in depth for this career, because some of them might not do good in one field, but they might not be good on another field. So I think but if we put not one size fit all. So I really think that if we kind of catering, particular some of the student, maybe they are at the edge of drop out or something, looking and help them to maybe move to some question about career and help them to help me plant the seed in their mind that this is not the option. You can make a little bit more money by choosing this career, or vice versa from the other career. That's something that I have in mind. And I think that the new program CGI is very, and I think very good. Looking to one of this credit to career system that we have. And I really wonder that if the system maneuver that some of the career might not provided in here, the student might get lost. Like, I'm not fit on any career that you provide in here, but I'm good on my hands, I'm good on number, or I'm good on particular some hobby or whatever. Should we take a look to see if we can expand and help that student? Because not, like I said, not one size fit all, because maybe I'm good on math, I might go with this particular career, but other might look into, am I good on auto, or am I good on art, drawing something. So I like to see if we process and we move on with this program and we can evaluate it and look into maybe we can add on or revise or adjust it. Something that I really want to looking forward to see this program move on forward. I really say them thank you, and I know that Student Governing Board also had some question when we talk about this item during the meeting last Monday, and I know that they have some input. That's something that I really want to see, because we on the side, we look in as adult, but the student might look in a different angle. So something that we can do a survey, or, how we can put them together. That's something that I have in mind, but I really appreciate you make the presentation today. And that's something that I really would want to go through with the Navians, and we can move it forward. Thank you.
I'll just a couple of things. I think it's exactly right. One of the things that I think Ms. Guerrero mentioned as part of the presentations was the development of those common assurances, those tiered supports at each of the levels, right? 9th grade needs are different from 10th grade needs, are different from 11th grade needs, different from senior needs. And so being able to develop those tiered supports at each of those levels through the use of our warning system that we have, that whole child data report that I shared with you as part of the LCAP, that again, Kristen King developed through her team, that allows us to be able to look at the students at the end of every grading period to determine who are the kids that are at the highest need, to be able to then support those interventions. And so the goal is really to be able to align our practices, as Ms. Guerrero has mentioned, to ensure that we're using the data tools that we have to identify the tiered supports that our students will need, so that then we can provide those specific services. And you also notice that there's that alignment to the LCAP piece. We're not only going to now bring metrics to you, those outcome data, but we're also going to talk about the capacity data that's required to implement something as large as this, as well as the implementation data, so that you can see the level of fidelity to the implementation of this new initiative.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Colleagues, any other questions or comments? No? Lee? Do you have any?
If you or Patty remembers any of the questions that the students had up from Monday, because I didn't attend the Monday meeting, but if there were any like questions that they were talking about, then you could bring them up.
No, they just mentioned about we're not consistent, from one school to another. And some of the school, they aware of the Naviance, some of them was not aware of the Naviance app.
If you would like, we'd be happy to meet with the student governing board and talk to them. I think their input, especially as we align to the LCAP around the type of data we should be collecting around implementation and capacity, become extremely important. I think the outcome data, we already know what that is the financial aid applications, the college applications, the A through G completion. But education as a whole, we see something, we want to try it. And I think taking the time this time around, having learned lessons with the implementation of Naviance, we must take a little bit of time to ensure that we have a plan for implementation and a way to measure, not just at the end of the year, but also periodically, and maybe have real-time data that can help us adjust our plan to ensure that all of our students have access to this information and that it's information that's valuable to them as they think about their future, right? It's about them. So if at some point there is time for us to come out and meet with them, we'd be happy to.
Sure. Good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I have some questions and comments. Sorry. No, don't apologize. You're like, we're done here. No, I love this kind of stuff. So thank you. It's clear there's a lot. I love the through line, just super appreciative. So a few comments, questions, thoughts, all of the above. First question is, how long did we say that this app tracks students? I know we said it's from 6th grade where they can start engagement. Is it till the end of 12th grade, or does it follow through college?
It is my understanding that it's 6th through 12th.
Okay.
Yeah, 6th through 12th.
Okay. So the question that I've been holding is, how can we track the through college so that we can get those numbers and see what college and career looks like for our students in the East Side?
We do have some other tools that we actually do that, and we can look at who goes and in persistence. And that's one of the things we've started sharing with our feeder districts as well as part of the alliance. So that'll be something that we'll be able to continue to share about our college going rate and our persistence rate.
I'd love to learn more about that. Okay. And I think you started speaking to this, Martha, when you said, yes, let's get the students involved. I'm like, yes, because when we talk at the very end of the data and aligning it to LCAP, I had questions on, well, how will we get this different periodic data? Because some of it's clear we have ways of doing it, but others it's not as clear. And I know it's still thinking, we're thinking through what that will look like, but I think our students can give us some good ideas también. So I really love that idea. And Teresa, I think you mentioned this, that every grade will be engaging with and seeing who needs maybe a little bit more support. But I guess the question is, are we engaging with our middle schools so that our students, especially in the career part, so that they can see, these are my interests. In order for me to get to this is where I can do it. And yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Like I said, last week we were at Mount Pleasant Elementary School District, and we're going to meet with all our feeder districts around the opportunity to participate in this. We already have a data share agreement with them through the core data warehouse. And so we've been doing a lot more data analysis, and they've really been asking about who are our students that are coming to Eastside, and when they're students, what's their success rate? How are they doing in mathematics? Are they staying through their entire high school career? What's the graduation rate? And then also in terms of whether they enter the trades, other opportunities or college going information, they're asking for that. And we're going to engage around that.
Okay.
This is great because as we talk about the Spartan Eastside Promise and other opportunities, this gives us an ability. This speaks directly to the promise. This is something that when a parent says, what's A through G? How do I track that? There's a button to click, right? So this is not having to figure it on their own. So as we roll this out for the next couple of years, it is completely aligned to where we want to go, and being able to speak to multiple opportunities. And
Yep.
I mean, college and career, that there are tools here available to folk that we can now point to, direct to, rather than have to speak hypothetically. And wouldn't it be nice that someday we have something like this?
Yep,
This will be here and we can point to it and say, now let's get to work.
got it. Super helpful. And it's interesting that you say promise, because I was like, where have I heard cradle to career? The Oakland Promise. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Oakland Promise. There's collaboration across multiple layers of government, entities, you name it. There's brilliant baby, kindergarten to career, college access and college completion. There's also the Richmond Promise. So for us, it's the Spartan Promise plus Eastside Alliance is what I'm hearing. Is that accurate?
What I'm saying is our goal is full participation in Silicon Valley. And
Mhm,
Spartan Eastside Promise is a powerful tool to that, but it's
Mhm.
not the only tool. There are
mhm,
other options.
mhm,
What this tool allows us to do is, if we can get all of our members of our feeder districts online with this,
mhm.
students can start interest surveys, career exploration, understand what the work of high school is and preparing for that. Families will be able to monitor their way through that. Counselors will be able to engage with tier one with all students through
Mhm.
this. Tier
Mhm.
two, where students that need a little bit more connection or need some additional academic supports to get through it, not just take this class, but let's get through it. And also our tier three students, and allow us to track our success in our community's passage through that. This is pretty comprehensive and pretty great. And I hear the concerns about the data sharing, but a lot of that social service health data is really, from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is also just because of the research angle
Mhm.
about how we set up social services across the state and other educational supports. And whenever those requests will be made and that research will be done, individual identities will be removed from the data set.
Okay. Thank you
Good
so very
questions.
much. Thank you.
So if I may have one last quick questions, given all the progress and all the technology tool that we have, and will we be able a year or 2 years from now, look back and see the progress that we have made with the tool that we have and all the resource that we have investing in?
I believe so. I think by putting with this partnership and being able to upload the information and analyze it and run reports in a way that tells us not just are our kids A through G, which is something that we can do internally, but have they applied? Are they attending a university? Do they have the financial aid to go on? I think it's going to change the nature of some of our reports and the information that we provide you and we provide our community.
If we can have a before and after pictures, essentially, we can make sense for us to persuade our feeder school to engage in the same progress so that we can then now see a bigger before and after. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed Services, for always being on the cutting edge, and thanks for
Yes.
IT for the support on the back end and getting all ready. And just a reminder, it's not done yet. It's still in construction. It's still being put together. The data agreements are still being entered. Different tools are not yet ready. And so we will launch what they have when we're ready to launch and they're ready to launch, and we'll keep you informed on that. So the one caveat to your question is, hey, in 2 years, can we go back and look at all of this? Maybe not, depending on the maturity and the growth of the tool itself.
Live is the product in progress.
Wonderful. Okay, we are now in section 13.01. This is contracts for professional services over 25,000.
Move
Uh,
for approval.
Okay, we got motion by Herrera, seconded by Doe. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, the vote passes unanimously. 13.02, we got action to approve additional charter school audit extension waivers. And I believe we have a comment on this. So should we take the comments first? Yeah, that's how it works. Okay, great. So Thomas. You will have 2 minutes to speak. State your name for the record, please.
There we go. Thomas Brittendahl, teacher at Oak Grove High School, and also Vice President for Eastside Teachers Association. Just want to read off a little history as it relates to this subject matter. The board extended the audit deadline for ACE back in November for 1 month to December. The board extended San Jose Conservation Corp back in December for 1 month to January. The board extended Latino College Prep, Luis Valdez Leadership Academy, and B. Roberto Cruz Leadership Academy back in December for 2 months to February. Now all of these charter schools are asking for an additional waiver to April the 30th. The district does not choose the auditor for these schools. These charter schools choose their own auditor. At some point, the extensions need to end. If these schools are unable to satisfy their obligations in a timely manner, the board and district administration should question their capacity to govern themselves. The staff of Eastside Union High School District will happily welcome each of these students to our high schools, schools that answer to this publicly elected board. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Superintendent.
No, there's no online comment.
Recommended by administration, I move for approval.
Moved by Herrera. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Cortese. No, he was looking to see if there were any comments. There were no comments, additional
okay.
comments, yeah. Okay, so we have a motion by Herrera, second by Cortese. Lee, how do you vote? Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question that if we extend the annual audit on or before April 30th, 2023, if they miss the deadline again, what is the next step? What are consequences? And how, are we going to have another extension?
So these extensions are not, I would say, not in the control of the charter schools themselves. In this instance, it is the outside auditing firm that does not have the resources in terms of labor. They're short-staffed, and that's why it's being extended.
So all of those
So
charter
it's-
school,
Mhm.
they have the same problem and it's been postponed. Yeah.
It's for the audit firm itself, not for the charter school.
Mm.
These are outside firms, just like we have our annual audit. They are contracting with outside firms to conduct their audit, and that's it. The firm is not able to complete it due to shortage of staff.
Okay.
Sorry, shorter staff from the auditing firm or from the charter
The
school?
audit firm, the audit firm.
Auditing firm.
Mhm.
Would have to actually make that clear, because in the comment in this item, it says due to the personnel shortages that have led to a severe bottleneck in the completion of the annual audits. I interpreted that as staffing shortages at the charter schools, not at the audit
It
firm.
was the audit firm, yeah.
Do they provide with us an ETA of when that they will be complete with their audit?
I believe it's going to be before the April 30th timeline.
So this is the first extension,
What about
Second.
the,
Is
yeah,
the
this
first-
is the second.
is the
extension.
second extension.
Mhm.
Okay. Right.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we got a motion on the floor by Herrera, seconded by Cortese. Lee, did you have a comment?
Can I abstain? Because I honestly don't really know a lot about this, and I know that like the other students don't have an opinion on this, so.
Great. Board, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The vote passes unanimously. Okay, that's 13.02. We are now into section 14. All right, Human Resources, request to reduce workload program for 2023-24 school year. Mr. Nguyen?
Thank you. This is a request from Mr. Justin Oxtott from Santa Teresa High School to reduce its workload for next school year. And the difference with this program versus a reduction in FTE or a resignation in FTE is that under this program, the member gets a full years of service for the work, even though they're working part-time.
And this is something that we do, like it's,
We've done it before, yeah. And so this is an annual thing that we'll get, 1 or 2 a year to do.
This is a part of ed code and is also incorporated into our bargaining union agreement, our agreement with our bargaining union.
thank you for clarifying that.
Someone offer a motion
Move for approval.
so that I don't have to do it.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Lay, seconded by Cortese. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Abstentions? The vote passes unanimously. All right, so that's 14.01. We are now at section 15.01, bond capital project contracts over 50,000. Ms. Hunchu?
This is standard. I'll move to approve.
I just,
I yield to Ms. Cortese.
I just wanted to give staff an opportunity to say a few words if they wanted to, but okay.
This is a standard operational item.
Yes, and a few seconds wouldn't hurt, so, but that's fine. Go ahead.
I moved.
Okay, moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. That's 15.01. 15.02, approve the allocation of 47 million 2014 election, Series D, Educational Technology Ed Bonds. Ms. Huntoon?
Yes, so there's a resolution to issue the Measure I-Tech bonds. This was several meetings ago. And so this is demonstrating the plan for the remaining portion of the Measure I-Tech bonds. And so this is the plan for the distribution of that. Please note that we did align that with the core values for the district.
Wonderful, thank you for that. Is there a motion? Okay, we
Second.
got a motion
I-
by Doe. Do
I
we
have a
second?
question.
Okay, hold on.
So when you say, say what you just said again about aligning with the plan?
Yeah, so we wanted to demonstrate that the plan actually is taking, just like we're trying to align everything. We have our vision, our mission, our equitable communities, our LCAP, our goals. And so anything that we're doing, whether it's in the educational services or business services, we want to make sure that we're aligning together.
Okay, so this is what's in here then is how we plan on using the 47 million.
That's the plan.
Broken down. Got it. Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. So district-wide learning device, is that one of those computer for our students or
My apologies. What was the, which one?
on the project name, when you allocate district-wide learning devices, 8 million? That learning devices, are they computer for our students?
There can be
Yes.
a range of items,
According
including
to
the
basis.
laptops that we
Laptops,
choose to distribute.
so we
to students.
update them, okay.
Thank you.
Great questions. Any other questions or comments on this section? Okay, so did we have a motion? Felix?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, moved by
Yeah,
Patty.
we did already. Patty move, I'm second, I believe.
Okay, moved by Patty, seconded by Lee. Lee, how do you vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and now we have consent calendar. So this we know is items that show up all the time. So do we have a motion for consent calendar? Oh. Moved by Herrera, seconded by Doe. Lee, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board, all of those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Vote passes unanimously. So that's 16 through 20. There's nothing on written reports. 22, future agenda items. Any future agenda items? No, okay, let's go on to 23. All right, look at that. We're speeding right through. All right, any comments? Let's start with trustee Lay.
Well, I just want to say that kudos to our student at Independence High School for multicultural show. I attended, I think, last couple weeks, as well as student of Santa Teresa High School for their yearly cultural show, and appreciate the leadership of teachers of Santa Teresa, as well as activity director of Independence, as well as all of those principals, that they be able to support our students to help keep the tradition, the language, and also motivate them to have the multicultural. And I want to say that I think this weekend we have a graffiti and to support our East Side student. Even though despite my busy schedule, I'm trying to be there, support our student. And I thank you, our board, to supporting me during the tough time, but appreciate that. That's all I have.
Trustee Herrera.
Excuse- I don't know if I heard correctly, but when Member Lay was asking questions, making comments on the Naviance thing, it seemed like you were indicating a desire for more data more frequently or more sooner than might otherwise occur. And it just occurred to me, just building on our board retreat, that anything that implies or suggests the allocation of staff time and effort, at that point, we really ought not to be addressing them. We ought to be addressing the superintendent and ourselves, so that that can be held, in an executive context of everything else, and with the sense of the whole board, not one board member, doing. So I'm just pointing it out at kind of learning as we go for what we're intending to do and so on. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Herrera. Cortese.
No comment other than looking forward to seeing everyone at the crab feed tomorrow, Saturday night.
No comment.
Great. Superintendent Van der Zee.
A lot of nervous seniors out there right now.
Are you a nervous senior? Is that what you're saying?
Well, thanks for calling me out on like that, but there's a lot of nervous seniors out there. April 1st is when our students are going to start hearing back from CSUs and UCs, and we won't have a board meeting for that. So for all those anxiously waiting and applied, we're thinking of you. For all those who are anxious, if you apply to the Spartan Eastside Promise, you'll know immediately after November 30th that if you've met the requirements, you're in. So let's remember that for the future. Also, we talked about the foundation's crab feed, but prior to that, at Independence High School, I believe we're starting around 2:00 will be the first Pistahan Sa East Side celebration of Filipino culture that's going to be going on based on 3 of our schools, 3 student groups got together, decided to collaborate, are going to be at Independence and just went overboard and brought in just different groups from local colleges and community groups. So if you can get on over there, it'll be our first annual event, and excited about that as well.
So
Thank you.
for the record, I was not calling you out, but good luck to all your seniors out there.
All right. It's a different kind of senior moment. Yeah.
All right, let's go to section 24. Council, is there anything to report out?
There are no items to report out from closed session.
No items to report out. Look at that. It is 7:55. Meeting adjourned.